Good evening and Happy New Year. It's a new year and a new chance to take a stand against drug use and domestic violence. Armstrong School District presents Education Today.
Happy New Year, everyone. I'm John Zish with the Armstrong School District, and welcome to Education Today. More and more, it seems that drug abuse and domestic violence are destroying our communities, and that's why there's Armstrong County Community Awareness Day. This week, we're taking a second look at what's going on in the Armstrong School District as we observe this important annual week. This is an annual awareness blast that is a call to action to basic citizens because doing nothing allows addiction and abuse to worsen in our neighborhoods. This week, once again, we have some outstanding guests from the National Character Education Foundation. Welcome to the show. Would you please introduce yourselves?
My name is Terry Davis, and I'm honored to be here and to be a part of this panel and discussion.
Very good.
I'm Danielle Bayshore. I'm also honored to be here.
Norma Purcell, thank you for having me.
Very good. Well, Danielle, I'm going to start with you. Your background is that you started on drugs at an early age, and you've now been clean, and you're sharing a story with students about how they can avoid that similar fate. I was wondering if you could tell me how you got started on drugs and maybe with an eye towards advising kids how they should stay away from it.
I think the key to me using drugs was the very first one that I ever picked up, and I thought that it was all experimental, and that I would never become a drug addict, and my life would never turn out how everyone said it would be. A lot of it had to do with going into middle school and the transition with new friends, new classes, new social activities, things like that, and also a very personal low depression in my life at the time, which I'm not really sure what was caused by it. But somewhere around 6th, 7th grade, my whole life just completely changed. And friends had a lot to do that influenced my drug use, as well as my older siblings. I have an older sister and 2 older brothers and some stepsisters that influenced my drug use as well.
Now, many kids try drugs at parties and swear they'll never do it again. But what led you to keep going with them?
I'm not sure I can answer that question. I don't know. I think there's definitely a big difference between social use, which in the beginning when I used drugs, that's what it was, and then drug addiction, which was what it turned into. But I think not being able to deal with the depression and not having the coping skills to be able to talk about what was going on in my life and how I was feeling and things like that definitely played a big part in it.
Now, what do you wish you knew about drugs before you got started with them?
I wish someone would have told me what would really happen in my life, the consequences that were going to come along with the drugs, not, the things that I would lose, the relationships that I would use, the material things that I would use, that I would drop out of high school. All those things no one ever told me. And
well, how did you break free? Was there a teacher or a principal or parents or something?
There was actually a principal that I went to when I was in the 11th grade. I was in an alternative education program, and I went to school and I was under the influence, and somebody asked me what was wrong, and I guess I had had enough that day. And I told him, I'm using drugs, I've been using drugs, and I need help. And he was there to help me, and within 24 hours I was in treatment.
That's very positive that he did that.
Yes, I'm very grateful for him.
Were there any other efforts at intervention that well-meaning people tried to do before that didn't work? Do you remember anything like that?
Well, the time that I talked to the principal was the first time that I went to treatment. I've been in treatment 4 times, so obviously there were some things that didn't work, but I think what it came down to was my readiness and my willingness, and I had had enough, and I just didn't want to die, and I knew that if I continued, my life was going to get worse than it already had, and it was bad at the time.
And what has been your story of recovery? And what's it like? I'm sure it's not easy, but can you tell us a little bit about that?
It's definitely not easy, but it's a lot easier than using drugs. A lot of doors have been opened for me. Obviously, I'm working for the National Character Education Foundation. I get to help people, and I get to share my story and let them know what happened to me and that it doesn't have to happen to them. I'm in college. I do a lot of volunteer work. I give back to the community what I took from them. Whenever I was using, I took so much from my family, my friends, and just society as a whole, and I feel almost obligated to give it back to them and let them know that there is a better way to live.
Well, I appreciate that perspective. And
Thank
now
you.
let's go to Norma for the parent perspective. What were some signs that there was a problem with your son when you were going through the situation that you survived?
Like Danielle said, we started seeing signs of mood swings when Thomas was in about 8th grade. He was very active in school at the time. He was a football player, basketball player. He was very active in his church, a leader in his school, student council, all those good things that you want your kids involved in. And his mood swings went from being very, very happy and doing very, very well to not doing so well and sleeping a lot. And the mood swings came definitely before the drug use. And I think those mood swings when they were at their low is what led him to wanting to feel better. And he met some new friends, and they had the right remedy for him. And he started smoking cigarettes, and then it went to pot. And we got him in counseling at that time. He was in 9th grade. It progressed each year, each month it was getting worse and worse, and by 10th grade he was doing a lot more than that. He was drinking all the time, and he had was undergoing counseling at that time too, so we were trying to work with the underlying problem of what might be happening and why he was choosing drugs. But it was just continually getting worse and worse, and by 11th grade he was doing heroin, and he had wrecked a few cars, and it got very bad before he went into rehab.
It sounds like you were there for him every step of the way, trying to help. Is there anything you can think of possibly that you might have done differently?
If I would have done anything differently, it would have been before the drug use, and that would have been to know who he was hanging out with and his friends parents and families. He was getting a lot of his drugs and mostly alcohol from his family, from his friend's family and his parents. He found friends that had access to that very easily, and he went right along with that easily.
Well, now we'll move on to Mr. Terry Davis. I was wondering if you could please tell me your personal story of getting clean and how you overcame, the lifestyle that you were in.
Well, I haven't touched alcohol in any form, smoked any drugs since 1983.
That's
And
great.
I attribute that to the fact that I came to a place where only place I could go was up. Being incarcerated and looking at those who even continue to use while incarcerated because drugs were being allowed in, it wasn't much of a struggle to continue to look at what they were. I did not want to become. In the fact that I didn't want to keep perpetuating a lifestyle that was putting me down a spiral. For me personally, I didn't need a rehab, I didn't need a drug, I didn't need to go to rehab because I knew for a fact that my particular addictive personality, as an athlete who would go for it, if I would embrace something that was going to excel me towards the extreme, I would. And I find a lot of people who do drugs take it to the extreme because they have extreme personalities. Last but not least, I like to say in that regard, is that it was difficult for me to come to understand that there is immediate, sometimes, consequences behind choices. Mine was prolonged, and delayed does not mean forgotten. And I learned that over a tenure of time.
Now would it be fair to say a drug dealer up and down the East Coast?
I was a drug dealer, I was a drug user. I drank constantly. I think one of my greatest things I say is that my mom and dad never were drinkers or smokers. And so my association with that particular lifestyle came outside of the home. Really want to be accepted, want to be in the clique, want to be cool, want to be down, for lack of a better expression. And that led me to something that I haven't heard mentioned yet. I liked getting high. I mean, it was fun because I can get away from the reality that I was awkward and had a size 13 shoe as a 14-year-old kid and 16 and 17-year-old kid, and I was big. But when I got high, my reality was changed, and I had to realize that everything that you may like to do is not good for you.
Well, now from the drug dealer side of it, how did you know who to sell to?
I had a man that approached me when I was in college. I went to Miami-Dade Junior College. My work-study job was working at Miami-Dade District Courts in the early 80s. So here I am working, filing pictures and files of criminals, and a particular attorney approached me about if I ever wanted to make some extra money, let me know. And he had the clientele already established. You know, one of the greatest fallacies is that you have to be an urbanite, you have to be from a poor family. My mom and dad raised me in a middle-class environment, had a brownstone home in Queens, New York. My dad was a manager and owned a Ford car dealership and auto parts store. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. But the reality of the matter is, I was a person who looked for affirmation from peers who didn't have some of the family trappings that I had that were a blessing. I was looking for those to give me some sense of direction and identity because they did things that everybody seemed to stand and give an applause to. And I wanted that applause.
Now, you spent 4 years in jail for
4.5.
drug and related crimes. What sort of a tag has that put on your life, and what sort of difficulties has that caused you after you've recovered from it?
Well, I must say I've been very blessed. I really had no stigma. When I was released from prison, there was a particular pastor in the area that a church I was attending in D.C. He said, "I heard that you had gone to prison and you know about drugs and you got your degree." I said, "Yes, I do. I want to hire you as a crisis intervention counselor." So my job, as soon as I got out of prison, was working with those in Ward 8 in Washington, D.C. under Mayor Barry administration, talking to drug dealers, talking to people who were HIV positive. Magic Johnson just came out and acknowledged that he was HIV positive. So I really had not had the stigma that many people had. Along with that, people always gave me an opportunity to share about what I've been through, and now I'm also able to do what I do full-time for speaking, and I'm a pastor, I believe, of moderate success in the Mont Valley area.
Very good. When we come back, we're going to see some Armstrong School District produced videos that talk about Community Awareness Day. Stay with us.
Indiana University of Pennsylvania. Our students say the campus has a mesmerizing beauty. Their families say it's a comfortable place to study, to grow, and to pursue dreams. More than 100 majors of study, a wide variety of extracurricular activities, exceptional value for the right price. Indiana University of Pennsylvania, the perfect fit.
And now we're going to take a look at some Armstrong School District produced footage that ties into the theme of Community Awareness Day. Let's have a look.
Hello, I'm Magisterial District Judge Gary DiComo, co-founder of Armstrong County Community Awareness Day. Community Awareness Day was created to raise the level of prevention awareness in our county. Every year, each second Monday in January, Armstrong County residents join together in a community celebration of prevention. We are a community united against domestic violence, child abuse, sexual assault, and the abuse of alcohol and other drugs.
Every day after school, I get picked on the bus. Some kids throw things at me, others call me names, and some take my book bag away from me. Sometimes I get so upset that I don't even want to come to school anymore.
I know it's hard for you when you get picked on. What do you do when they start on you?
Mostly I yell at them, but sometimes I get so mad that I just want to hit them.
You should never stand up to a bully with physical force. Have you tried ignoring them or telling them to leave you alone? Have you talked to the bus driver or your parents? If you show them that you are upset, then they will just continue that behavior. Try to be calm and tell someone you trust about what's going on.
Thanks for all your help. It's great to have a friend who cares.
My brother Jamie isn't in school today. I'm really worried about him.
What's up?
Him and Dad got into it last night.
What happened?
Well, Dad came home from the bar and Dad caught Jamie in a lie and Jamie just started to mouth off to him. Dad put him up against a wall and punched him. He told him it'd be best if he stayed home from school today.
Is he okay?
He's okay, but the same thing happened this summer. Dad twisted Jamie's arm and Jamie had to put his arm in a sling for a whole month. Kid's only 9 years old and he's not even safe in his own home.
What if you're not there the next time? You need to call someone who can help. There are people out there who can help families in these situations.
Well, what can I do to get some help?
Mrs. McCall can help. Let's go down to the guidance office and talk to her. She can call someone who can help your family.
Hey, Julie, you look worn out. Is something wrong?
No. Well, kind of. My parents are up fighting and screaming at each other all night last night.
Do they do that all the time?
They do it quite a bit, and I think it's getting worse. I'm afraid that someone might get hurt. I think my dad hit my mom last night.
Julie, nobody deserves to be treated like that. You should tell a guidance counselor or call that domestic violence shelter. Haven, I think, was its name. I know a lot of people who've been in domestic violence situations, and Haven has helped them.
I guess I could give it a try. Thanks for your help.
Hey, Katie, do you remember what happened last night?
Yeah, we were drinking Jack Daniels with the guys.
Yeah, but it felt really funny. I only had one shot, and I think I passed out. And whenever I woke up, John was on top of me and our clothes were off.
Well, don't you remember when Haven came into our school and gave us a talk about date rape drugs? Maybe somebody slipped something in your drink.
Yeah, whenever she came, she said if we ever had a problem like this, just to call and someone from Haven would help us. I'll call.
Okay, I met my abuser whenever I was 15. He was 17. He was a real nice guy. You would never believe that he would ever have turned out the way that he is now. He was in and out of placement. He lost his dad at a young age. His mother was abusive towards him, never treated him right. I don't know if that's why he acts the way he does. Things were going good for a while. I found out I was pregnant, and at 5 months I lost the baby. That's when it all went downhill. I moved into a house with a couple houses down from my dad's house, and I don't know, it just all changed. Maybe a week after my son was gone, he wanted me to have another baby. We had to have another baby. He needed his baby back. I didn't know no better. I just wanted to make him happy, so whatever he said goes, you know. So, I ended up pregnant with my son now. He's 5 now, and the whole time I was pregnant, I was fat, I was ugly, I was stupid. If I didn't have sex with him, I wasn't allowed to go to school the next day. I wasn't allowed to sleep in bed. I had to either sleep in a corner with no pillow, no blanket, or I had to sit up all night. If you saw me doze off, I got hit. Whenever we first started dating, he really didn't he used marijuana at first, and then whenever he got with me, I told him I didn't like that, so he didn't do that. I think it was after we split up, like maybe once or twice, that's whenever he really got into alcohol and cocaine and heroin and Oxycontins, just stuff like that. Every time he would drink, he would think about his dad, or something would come up where, like the time that I'd left and he missed his first Christmas, and it would just trigger something in him, and he would just get mean and just start beating on me. If he was out of drugs, or just, it was always my fault, basically. I don't know what it triggered in his head, but it seemed as soon as he started doing whatever he was doing, then it was all over, and I was getting beat up. My son started getting violent with me. That's whenever I knew I really needed to find a way to get away from him. My son wouldn't listen to me. Every time I would tell him to do something, his dad would tell him he didn't have to listen to me. I wasn't nothing, and it was to the point where the one time I did leave, and I told my son he couldn't do something, and he grabbed me by the neck and looked at me and told me he was going to kill me. He would hit me just downright like he was like his dad. And that's, in a way, that's my fault, because I let that go on. And still to this day, he respects me more because I've grown up a lot, and I've showed him the right way to do things, but he still has those little times where he is a little rebellious. But that's another thing that women need to understand. If their son, they mostly got to worry about their sons, because if they grow up and they notice their dads doing that to their mom, they're going to do it to their wives, and who knows, maybe even to their children. And I know that's something that a lot of people, their parents, don't want to see happen to their children.
You know, growing up and through that process, that the only outlet I thought I had at times to be able to deal with the violence that was going on there was to get involved with drugs and alcohol. It started at a real early age. The violence was always there as a kid. I remember the first time my dad having a violent episode on me at the age of 6, where he pushed me against the wall. I started using drugs at the age of 7 years old. And it took me a long time before I had even stopped. It was the escape that I had looked for and didn't know how to deal with what was going on in my house, because I grew up in a home where it didn't go outside of the house. It just stayed in the house. You didn't talk about it with your friends. And if you did, you were going to be made an example of. Through that process of growing up like that, I started to hang around and started to gravitate to kids who were just like me. And I didn't know why that would happen on a lot of occasions. You know, the only thing I wanted was the love of my father when I was growing up. His grandfather was the same way. It was always about how you can yell the loudest to be able to get your point across. It was never about communicating. It was about this is my way and that's the only way. And growing up and becoming a teenager, I didn't realize that the inside of me was starting to build a volcano itself, because I had stuffed things for so long and not talked to anybody about it. If you have a chance today and you're sitting there watching this video, look, take the time to talk to someone, anyone, about it. Because if you don't, it's going to be a process that carries on not only later into your life, but it's going to be a process that carries on into your children's lives.
My name is Zeke Porter. I'm 21 years old. I'm sitting in the Armstrong County Jail right now waiting to be sentenced on a bunch of drug-related crimes. I had a good relationship with my parents. I was an honor student in school, always getting good grades. We always went out, did fun things together, family things. Then I started getting messed up in the drugs, and everything just went bad from there. They kicked me out. We wouldn't talk to each other for a long time, and everything just really got messed up. I was 15 years old. My friends came up to me and said, hey, you want to have a party? We got some alcohol. We're going to go drink and have fun. I started drinking every day from then on. Then I got worse, started smoking weed, got into Oxycontins, and all of a sudden that wasn't enough. They were so expensive. So I started doing heroin, and I started out snorting it, and it just wasn't enough anymore either. Started shooting it, ended up doing over 50 bags a day. It's about $350 on the streets. And thought it was real fun doing it until I started getting in a whole bunch of trouble. I had a good job. I was working every day. And then all of a sudden when I got into drugs, I wouldn't show up, wouldn't even call off, I just wouldn't go. So I ended up getting fired. And I started robbing people to get my money so I can get the high I needed. I went to rob a gas station and held a lady at gunpoint to get $550 off her. Got burglaries from my parents' house, robbed my friends, my family, and ended up in jail. I don't know, I think I'm facing about 2 to 4 years. I've been sitting for 9.5 months now, and I'm still waiting to go to court. Your whole body hurts, feels like your skin's crawling, you got cold sweats, you don't want to move, you just lay there for days, you don't want to eat, you don't want to do anything. Just lay there and wait for it to go away. No, the drugs are everywhere. I could walk down the street and get it. There's always people around that have something. I know from where I live, it's everywhere. It's so easy to get, it's unreal. Yeah, I wish when my friends started doing drugs, I wish I would have just went out and found new friends or got a new hobby, did something else. Instead, I stuck around them and ended up getting caught up in it myself. And for whoever's watching this, I want you to remember, drugs kill dreams. Don't let drugs kill your dreams.
That was certainly some very good footage that we just saw. And now back with our guests, I'd like to ask one last time before we go, is there anything else you'd like to add for the benefit of our viewers?
Yes, I would just like to encourage parents and grandparents, because there's a lot of young people being raised by grandparents in this generation, that they really get active and get nosy and get involved in what's going on with those that's in their family, especially those who are in junior high and high school years. I believe it's so pivotal that they take an aggressive but a loving approach to be in their business.
That's good. Well, that's our show for today. I'd like to thank my guests, Terry Davis, Danielle Bayshore, and Norma Purcell, all with the National Character Education Foundation. I'd also like to thank the TV students of West Shamokin High School, led by Mr. Ren Steele, and the TV students of Elderton High School, led by Dr. Bobby Hamill. They were our film crew today. Please join us again next week for another look at Armstrong School District's Education Today. Visit our website for updated information about the district, and have a great week.